And we often think that because the benefit is so great, people are going to do it, right? If I can set up automatic transfers to my landlord, so I pay them every single month, like that's something, it takes it off my plate. But I know that the actual linking of a bank account or doing something like that, those small frictions have these outsized, outweighted impacts. I'll give an example from kind of real life. I'm currently about 5 months into a process of applying for Irish citizenship. I'm working on this litany of forms that if I were to just set aside 3 hours in my day, I would have finished this 5 or 6 months ago. And the outcome, the benefit, the value of this is I have a lifetime EU citizenship, I have global access, can work in the EU, my children can have this benefit. But this friction of signing forms and filling them out and printing them has kept me from doing this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Jeff Ott, who is a senior behavioral scientist at Irrational Labs. My name is Joao Camargo, and I'm your host. And Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, Joao, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, why don't we start off with you just telling everyone a little bit more about Irrational Labs, about yourself as well, who you guys are, who you help, and any context that you'd like to share about the business too.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Irrational Labs, we're basically a behavioral design consulting agency, which what the heck does that mean? But we help companies basically understand the psychology of their users and use those insights to design better products. So our work spans everything from improving onboarding, increasing engagement, reducing misinformation, promoting trust. And we've partnered with companies like Google and TikTok and Intuit, Airbnb, Lyft, and others. Either from product design or kind of strategy. We can go kind of high level or more into the nitty gritty, but really all from this behavioral lens, and can talk more about that. But that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do at Irrational Labs.
Yeah, that's awesome. And tell everyone a little bit more about your background as well. I know we had a conversation before this, so you don't have to give them the whole full story or else we'll be here for a couple hours, which me and you would be very excited about. But tell them a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. Yeah. So I studied psychology and economics and a little bit of design in undergrad at Harvard, and really was fascinated. I started as an econ major and thought, how cool. This is how money moves through the world. This is the incentives of life are you pay people more, they do more of the behavior. And after kind of being in a couple of courses around that, I was like, hold on a second. Wait, why am I not looking for the highest paying job or the optimizing this, that, or the other? And was introduced into this world of all of these biases in the science of behavioral economics, behavioral science, and then the application of it to behavioral design. So worked in another shop, Ideas 42, for a number of years that kind of focused on the application in a nonprofit sense of things. And now we at Irrational Labs, we do a lot of work with tech. We do some workforce development, kind of runs the gamut, but was really fascinated and felt as though from the discipline of economics, something was missing. And that discipline was really the psychological biases. And
Very, very cool. And I wanted to start off, I guess, this trail that we're going to go down here now with talking a little bit just about behavior itself. I guess part of everything that we do is things we get rewarded for, we do more of. Things that we get punished for, we do less of. And that's kind of, dare I say, how the world goes around, right? So that's based on everything that we do. So talk to me about how a lot of these companies that you guys are working with are just based on the companies themselves, but even just the way that you guys approach these situations is or isn't based on that concept of reward and punishment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that there's this kind of this misconception at play at times when companies build this beautiful product and we say, hey, like we have this service that is going to change and revolutionize the world, and we often think that because the benefit is so great, people are going to do it, right? If I can set up automatic transfers to my landlord, so I pay them every single month, like that's something, it takes it off my plate. But I know that the actual linking of a bank account or doing something like that, those small frictions have these outsized, outweighted impacts. I'll give an example from kind of real life. I'm currently about 5 months into a process of applying for Irish citizenship. I'm working on this litany of forms that if I were to just set aside 3 hours in my day, I would have finished this 5 or 6 months ago. And the outcome, the benefit, the value of this is I have a lifetime EU citizenship. I have global access, can work in the EU. My children can have this benefit. But this friction of signing forms and filling them out and printing them has kept me from doing this. And we see this example time and time again with the companies that we work with around these small frictions that get undervalued when you have a beautiful product, actually keep people from using the product in the way that it's intended.
That's interesting. And what have you seen are the most common patterns for a lot of these companies that stops them from taking that? Oftentimes, I would assume minor steps or baby steps to get them to their goal. But just like in your situation, there's the would like to, and then there's actually reality. So
There's these like tos. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the cornerstones that exists here is we talk to companies and we're like, hey, we're coming in, we're a behavioral design company. Like, how can we help you? And they'll often say, hey, can you help us increase revenue, retention, engagement, these types of things that will say, yes, we want to, we are aligned with getting to that, right? Our kind of focal point is something that is good for the user and also good for the company. Like, we work in this kind of overlap of, we're not just trying to drive revenue for the company. We want to make sure that the user is also benefiting from this action. But typically in these first conversations, we're often talking about the language of outcomes rather than behaviors. And we can move the needle on outcomes, but the lever is the behaviors that we go through. So if it is, for example, we want to increase engagement, how do we get people to complete the onboarding flow? Right? How do we actually get people in the funnel? And that's something that we can redesign the onboarding flow. And sometimes it can be counterintuitive. It can be more personalization, adding an additional question that increases the endowed feeling. The endowment effect is leveraged there, that actually gets people to engage with it more on the back end.
And is that pattern? Thank you for clarifying that. That's interesting. And does that pattern get repeated for most situations, or is it always going to be dependent on the platform itself, the type of user, the type of market it is? Then that has to completely shift everything?
It's such a good question, right? So there are foundational principles that we know that, hey, people are generally loss averse. People are generally present bias. People are generally in these contexts. And then we'll work with companies to be like, this is the academic literature. This is where it has been. We've seen it in finance. We've seen it in health. We've seen it in all of these different spheres. Cool. Here's how we would recommend you test it in your context, right? Because if we're talking about how much the environment matters, how much the context matters, well, then we'd be a little bit blind to say it'll work in your context. Like, definitely, of course. We can pull from adjacencies, but we always recommend, hey, A/B test, in product, out of market testing before you kind of roll out any of the interventions.
Like anything major. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious to hear how many of these companies that you guys work with that are just absolutely clueless as to some of the actions that they can start taking and how the behavioral lens applies to everything else. Because of course, a lot of these companies that you mentioned are very large corporations known by, I'm assuming, most people that are listening to this. But on the other side of the coin, just because something looks great on the outside, that doesn't mean it's actually beautiful on the inside. So how often do you find that they actually have no idea, or they've never implemented something like what you guys do internally?
Yeah, I think it is. Okay, so I would say that the value of behavioral science is the lid is slightly off of Pandora's box. Like, hey, this stuff works. This stuff is it's like, it used to be like nobody had heard of it. Now it is in a place where, hey, I've heard of it. I know it works, but how do we apply this? So I think that's typically when we're coming into the conversation, and it really is exciting when we have a champion on the team to be like, hey, I've read some of the foundational texts. I've read Thinking Fast and Slow, Predictably Irrational, like any of the kind of foundational texts of behavioral science, to have a champion. But it is still something where you have to, as you get higher up the org, get buy-in to be like, hey, look at all of the times that we've applied this to all the different contexts. Look at the lift, right? We have so many examples that we can point to of, hey, we redesigned one medical's onboarding flow, saw a 20% increase in bookings. We like just so many different examples of, hey, it was a simple fix which feels really, and we can show the screen before and after, but we can show the lift time and time again. And the closer we get to that context, I think the more the buy-in.
Because then it gets to a point where the evidence is so irrefutable. Like, hey, here's everything that we've done, and there's a good chance we're gonna be able to do it for you as well. Maybe
Yeah,
not the same way, right?
totally. Exactly.
Yeah. So maybe not in the same way, but definitely another way that will work. And it's interesting because trust is always a huge thing in any decision making process, but especially when you're doing any B2B engagement, right? So is that process of building trust really, I don't want to use the word convincing, but showing them the value that you are able to bring, is that usually a complicated process, or usually for you guys like, hey, show the proof and it's like, okay, it's kind of seamless from here? It's just now a matter of trying to understand how we do it for you.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? Because there's a couple of different levels to trust, right? When you think about designing products for our clients, end user customers, to evoke trust. That's one, and I can give a couple of examples of how we
Sure.
do that. And then there's also like, how does the client trust the work of here? And I think
Mm.
some of it is like evidence based, some of it is okay, let's like actually run a test. We'll do the experiment with you, and then we come back and be like, look, we saw a lift from the redesigns one. I think that is, to your point of like irrefutable.
Mhm.
We can do that. As far as the actual like product design that can improve trust, we see actually some counterintuitive pieces where if you are more transparent, if you have these costly signals, for example, if you run there's a lot of evidence on showing free trials when it is going to end and saying, hey, we're going to actually email you or give you a notification 2 days before the free trial ends so that you cancel. There's a lot more the way to say it is that there is more retention in the ones that actually say, hey, I am going to tell you that this
Mhm.
ends, as opposed to like, here, sign up, and then we will like disappear, and then your credit card will be charged a month from
Yeah.
now. People are much more likely to sign up for ones when they know that there's going to be this kind of like costly signal of, hey, we're
Mhm.
going to let you know.
Yeah, that's interesting because even if it, like, it's so clear that it is an automation and it like, but it's doing everything to their benefit. It's like, hey, this is a warning here. If you love what we do, amazing, sign up right now. But if not, then totally cool as well. We don't want your money if you don't want to give us money. So then like it's like that unspoken bond that gets created. Is that right?
Right, we're always trying to get reciprocity, right? If there is I think so often we can, when we have these digital platforms, we lose there's a human at the other end. And if we can bring that psychologically, we can close the psychological distance and bring that closer together, whether it's this reciprocity of, hey, we have a product that is giving you this service and we see you and we want to acknowledge like
Hmm.
who you are. I think that is just better for design. It's better for the outcome. It's better for the product and the user as well.
Hmm. I like that. I like that a lot. And I would love to get your thoughts as well, Jeff. I'm assuming, and this might be a bold assumption here, but I am assuming that you are familiar with Robert Cialdini's work with influence and all those things. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on this is a very broad question, but what are your thoughts on the influence books, persuasion, all these things that look at psychology and behavior in a lens of trying to not persuade or convince people, but use it to our advantage to make sure that when we do take on these engagements, whatever the situation might be, it's working in our favor. What are your thoughts on the whole concept of his books? And I guess I'll just say the book Influence first of all.
Yeah, I'll take a step back from that to say the field of behavioral science can be applied to good or it can be applied to bad, right? It is the same thing as technology. It is the same thing. Like my smartphone does amazing things, and it also like it keeps me from living in peace and harmony a lot of times, right? I have an addiction to my cell phone in a way that like but it also allows me to connect with friends all around the world. And I think that Similarly, the science of like the field of behavioral science can be applied to how do we increase people getting personal loans that will reduce their credit card fees, and it will actually be a better financial service. Or we we worked with the lending club previously, and they incentivized us, hey, if you can offer more loans, that's like we will pay you on basically a commission base. And remember, our team was incentivized to give more loans, and we found ourselves actually acting as predatory lenders. And I think that was a moment when we had to take a step back and realize, hey, we're still using the same science, but if the ethics and the objective and our values are not being held front and center, then we're going to lose some of the kind of special sauce that makes this place
Yeah.
such a good place to work. So that's what I would say, is that it can be applied to both. We're not going to work in the space of how do we get airlines to dynamically price so that they can extract every dollar out of the YouTube. We're going to work with TikTok not to get people to spend more time on the app, but actually reduce the spread of misinformation. That's a project we've just done recently.
So in a roundabout way, it all goes back to the purpose and the goals and the targets, but looking at it from a, of course, an ethical lens, but also a good impact lens. Like, here's the good that we're trying to achieve with this, and we're going to use it in our favor to achieve more good, as opposed to just use it for our advantage at the cost of others.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. The cornerstone of Irrational Labs is we want to make people healthier, wealthier, and happier, right? If the project if the engagement that we're doing is not moving in that direction, we have enough business that we can say, actually, no, we're gonna go in spend our time and resources and energy towards somebody who is trying to do good in the world.
I like that. I know, and I would love to hear a little bit more. Like, I guess that we have enough business part. If there are any, what are some of the challenges when it comes to client acquisition, or that process of having more conversations, bringing more opportunity, and of course, as much as there's impact that needs to be achieved, the business also has to grow and keep and be sustainable. So, what are some of the things that can be obstacles in the way of achieving the revenue goals of the company?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think that I mean, I think it comes down to the culture of the organization. We're a relatively small shop, which allows for, I think about how we apply behavioral science internally. We have very little friction within the organization writ large. So we adopt this idea of a duocracy. If you see something like, hey, this we need visibility about how people are using AI to increase our productivity. My colleague Aaron and I just created this AI at Irrational Labs channel, and we're posting like, hey, this is how I use this for a lit review. This is how I used it for X, Y, and Z and the others. And so I think that this is a little bit of a roundabout way of how do we answer the growth of the company. Everyone is involved in this. So if there's an idea of, hey, we haven't worked in this space before, and I have contacts and we can pull from there, it's leveraging the collective. It's a very flat organization with no friction around, hey, I think that we could have a big bet in this area. Let's send somebody to this conference. Let's do a talk here. Let's hop on a podcast there. Like, there are very few things that we hold back that are just, I think, unnecessary, but a lot of other companies kind of deploy to be like, oh no, you're like on your first like month at the company, you shouldn't be pitching this to someone. It's like, no, it'll be okay, and it's better to try than and have it fall than not try.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's there is this huge level of internal trust as well, that no matter like what position you are, because of I think I said the word small but mighty when we were first having the conversation, right? Everything is so aligned so that there's like, let's say there's an opportunity to achieve XYZ or grow the certain aspect. If you or anyone else were to pursue that, then the team takes it seriously. Like, hey, I trust this person enough to know that if they are pursuing something, it might be worth our time. So sure, take a look at it, see if it's worth it. And if it is, then we all look at it internally together, because we ultimately want the same things.
Absolutely. And just to like speak to that, I mean, trust seems like it's a theme here, but how it is that we get to the point of having so much trust internally is it's a little bit of a quirky, but it is leveraged by behavioral science, the hiring process at Irrational Labs. So when you come on, nobody is given an offer when after an interview. You are given a project. You're staffed on one project, and then at the end of that project, there's a conversation of like, hey, how did you feel and how did we feel? And then at that point, there's a decision of like, do we move forward or do we not?
Mhm.
Realistically, that's kind of like what a lot of companies do, but it's framed as, all right, let's make an active choice to continue this once we've gotten to know each other a bit more. And I
Mhm.
think then you have the opt-in from the company. We say, Jeff, yes, come and join us. And
Mhm.
the person who's just joined says, yes, I will join. And I think that everybody now wants to be there and is wanted. Um, so I think that lends itself to the trust piece.
Yeah, so the culture is set before they even actually are part of the culture.
Yeah. And you have
Right.
no misgivings. There's no questions of what you're walking into. You
Mhm.
could, and this happens from time to time of like, actually, I want an organization with a little bit more structure or hierarchy or something of that nature. Cool. I've spent 3 months doing this project. Good to know. Thank you. Hope to stay in touch.
Mm. Yeah, it's not about just checking the boxes and like, yeah, you're good or you're not good. It's like, hey, how good is this for you? But also, how good is this for us? Are we aligned? If yes, amazing. If not, then totally cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of the way that we speak with our clients and build products and services, we look internally to try to infuse that throughout the company too.
Hmm. Very, very interesting. Very interesting. I have two final questions here for you, Jeff. One is a question that I've been asking pretty much everybody that comes on the podcast. So we'll start with that, and then we'll go on to my final question here. And the first one is, let's just say you had a magic wand, and you could just wave this phenomenal, amazing wand and solve just one thing in the company, a challenge, an obstacle, whatever it might be, that would allow you to hit all your revenue goals, your client acquisition goals, your growth goals, whatever goals that you have, just like that. I know so many times we have many things that we are trying to prioritize and focus on, but just one thing that's in your control, that's knocking on your door every single day. What would that one thing be?
Mm, mm. I think that it's a really good question, Joe. The thing that comes up the most, like I'm thinking about the frictions that I encounter quite often. I think there's something around just this idea of like when you were talking about like building trust and building understanding of this science. I wish I could just like give maybe it's the magic wand to be like, this is what we're trying to do, because it is a little bit of a convoluted like, hey, we need to focus on behaviors to get to outcomes to and go through this whole process. It takes a little bit of upskilling or like or transfer of knowledge. We're just buy-in, and we can spend a couple of weeks on that before we really get the full champion. And I think that if it were possible to just have a champion in some projects, we have a champion from the get-go. But if we
Yeah.
could have every point of contact just be like, we believe you, let's do this. I think then it's again to the trust of like, go and run with it. We know the science works. We know that you've done it in other places. Go and run with it. So
Mm.
that's kind of what I would say is like having the belief in behavioral science from the get-go.
That's awesome. It's almost like having that education be very quick to them. So like that upscale is very, very fast. They trust you, they understand it, and then it's like, okay, awesome. This is how we just have to bring this forward. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And then final question that I have for you here is actually not a question from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were. So are you ready for the question? Here it is.
Please.
What would you ask your 20-year-old self that you were never asked, but you wish you had been? So a piece of advice.
What would I wish that I had asked my 20-year-old self that I did not? Hmm. I think there's something. Oh, it's such a good question. I would love to thank the previous guest because it's a fun one to grapple with. I
Mhm.
think that one thing that I am realizing after having many more professional reps is how I feel doing certain work tasks. So if I am speaking at a conference, or if I am on a podcast, or if I am presenting to a client, like those are the things to me that like that feel energizing and good. And I didn't have just as many reps, and I also didn't have the, I think, wisdom to connect the action and the emotion before.
Mhm.
And so I did a lot of things that I didn't love as much. And today I'm finding like, oh, these 5 things bring me a lot of joy. I should do more of those. These
Mm.
10 things that I did previously professionally, like they don't bring me as much joy. Like, let's position myself to be in fewer of those environments. So I think it is like, hey, 20-year-old self, like understand what things make you feel good and do more of those things.
Sounds so simple, huh?
It does.
Like,
It doesn't
right.
so long to just be like, actually, the things that you do in life impact the way you feel about it.
Yeah, go figure. So that's so interesting, Jeff. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such an awesome talk. Where should people go? Yeah, phenomenal. And where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you or about Irrational Labs?
Yeah, I mean all the socials at Irrational Labs irrationallabs.com or at Irrational Labs for all the socials. And then you can also email me, Jeff at irrationallabs.com.
Phenomenal. I'll, of course,
Or email. Yeah.
yeah, I'll of course leave everything down below here for anyone that wants to check that out. And if you're still listening to this episode until now and you want to hear more conversations like this, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you, Jeff.
Cool. Thank you.